This trip started out like every other trip, with a sleepless night, anticipating big fish, and landing my first one on a fly. I was after the beautiful steelhead of the Oposo River. The morning was not how I imagined in my sleep. It was foggy with light clouds, which made me nervous, due to the small plane I was about to fly on. When I arrived at the South Terminal, I saw the rest of my party already waiting. I was traveling to Berta Corla with two other people, Ned Groslin and Walter Fills. The other person in our party was Arturo Linden. He was already at the camp, being there the week before. After checking in our bags and gear, we had a short breakfast followed by a chat session. We could feel the excitement of our week together, fishing for chrome, bright summer steelhead. As I peered out the terminal window to what was our means of transportation, I started to get a little uneasy. I dislike flying with the big airplanes, and you could imagine the feeling I had when I saw the small twin-propeller aircraft. The flight was reasonably smooth once we got to cruising altitude, and the view was spectacular. I saw high mountain peaks still covered with snow, glaciers in the valley between mountains leading to lakes, and low-laying clouds with just the tops of the highest mountains peaking. However, before I knew it, we were descending into Berta Corla. Looking down at the terrain, I could see the Berta Corla River in its glacier colors. At the airport, we gathered our gear and food and trucked it next door where our helicopter was refueling. After a short orientation on the safety features of the helicopter, the pilot started loading our gear. 2 people would go with the helicopter. The other would take the rest of the gear in a small Cessna 206 to the Kim's airfield. I guess it was my lucky day because I got the Cessna. I got to use one of the pontoon boats, which was exciting since I never used one before. It was a bit tricky at first, but after you pointed in the right direction and let the current take you across, it was the easiest way to move. After a few fishless hours, the water level got higher and colored up some more. I decided to go back to camp and get my gear in order. Walter and Ned got in a few hours later, and Walter started on dinner. The menu was remarkable, with every day having something from a different ethnic group. We started with Greek, followed by Chinese stir-fry, prime rib on Wednesday when the River Guardians showed up for dinner, succulent ham on Thursday, and Italian pasta on Friday. I think someone must have told them about my eating habits. After dinner, there were cocktails by the fire, with a few stories by Walter and Art. Walter was the comedian of the group, telling amusing stories and jokes to make our stay a pleasant one. That night, I slept great, due to lack of sleep the night before, and with a little help from my earplugs. The next day, Art was up and making coffee, before I even knew it was morning. With a little cleaning to rid the tables of mouse feces and inspect our storage box for intruders, we took a couple of snacks and a juice box for our day on the river. A quick huddle to discuss the game plan, and across the river, I went in one of the pontoon boats. Art and I worked the top end of the cotton run to the beginning of the island run, where Walter and Ned started their morning. Art, being the gentleman that he is, would let you start on a part of the run not covered. When you reached the tail out, you would go up to the head and work it down to the tail again. Covering water like that was the best method for our success. Art explained that the Oposo River, fish were bright, clean, and moving constantly. Working the run a couple of times would give you another chance at a bright summer steelhead. As the week went by, the water dropped steadily and cleared considerably. Runs that we overlooked were now starting to show their bottom structure, because they were flowing high and hard to read a couple of days earlier. Water we thought that we had covered with shooting heads was now fished with sink tips or long leaders and a floating line. By Tuesday, the river was clear enough to use just a floating line and long leader, with a fly just under the surface. My first steelhead came to a fly at the left bank of the camp run. The run is a deep, slow-moving water close to shore, which produced a few fish during the week for some of us. Every day we alternated runs to fish, starting at the head and working to the tail out. We rotated turns after each one got a fish. One morning, Ned and I went for a 15-minute hike to the Victory Run, which was where one of the area lodges set up camp. The trail leading to the run is an ATV trail used by the River Guardians and a few people who owned ATVs. That morning, the helicopter came and collected the occupants of the camp, which left the run to use along with one other fisher. I hooked a beautiful steelhead at the tail of the run, which jumped and pulled the hook loose, sending the fly line and hook back at me. After checking the hook to see if it needed sharpening, I cast it right back and let it swing in the same spot. To my amazement, another steelhead hit, taking line off my reel at an alarming rate. It headed right down to the end of the run. After what seemed like an eternity, the fish came to her senses and slid onto the beach. After a quick picture, I gently released her back to the river to continue her journey. Tuesday evening turned to heavy clouds with a light sprinkle, which eventually turned to a light rain overnight. In the morning, you could see the effects of the rain as the river was starting to color. We had a quick coffee, grabbed our snack bars and juice, and hit the river. The morning fishing produced a fish each for my partner and myself before the river turned a light tan color. As I made my way back to the pontoon boat, I stopped to talk to Art. From the opposite bank, I could see an intruder in our camp. It was a medium-sized black bear, heading for our camp. After a short attempt to get his attention, he kept on going into camp. We all headed back across the river to our camp to see what kind of damage the bear caused, expecting the worst. Hearing our yells, the bear retreated into the thick bush with minimal rewards from our camp. We cleaned up the mess and started on brunch. The bear did not go very far. He smelt something appetizing that turned out to be the bacon sizzling on the skillet. On the trail behind camp, after brunch, one of the guys came face to face with the same bear. A quick shout and a blast from a bear banger, and the bear disappeared, later seen crossing the river above the cotton run. Since the river stayed colored for the rest of the day, we prepared for our guests. 2 river guardians and a fishery head biologist from Willam Lake came for dinner that evening. We supplied the prime rib roast with potatoes and vegetables, and they supplied the wine. I think the only thing missing was the candles and bow ties. The week was ending quickly, and being focused on catching steelhead, I hardly noticed the view. I sat on a log waiting for my turn at the run, meanwhile absorbing the landscape. This is one of the last places lacking any logging, and I hope it stays that way for a long time. You look around and realize that this is a pristine place, maybe one of a few remaining places in the province. This was a trip come true, and one that I will remember for a long time.